Well, I must tell you that there are some people saying I'm dead. And I felt I ought to come and say that I've been reincarnated in the same body. Okay, I'm going to talk about the future because I think that we're far too much trapped in the past. We have a vocabulary for what we are interested in that's at least 200 years old. And our reality boxes are locked into the definitions of the vocabulary, you know. But things are going to change. And I know they are, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, if I can hold it together that long. You know, the future is a very nervous frontier. And that's why we like what happened in the past. And we model our models after what has happened in the past. Do you all understand what a model is? You know, that's the way they thought about it, so it must be correct. So that we bring that model into the present, and then because we brought it into the present, those that come after us carry it into their present. Can you think of any reason why the old models should change?
Sure.
Why is that?
They're imperfect.
Pardon?
They're imperfect.
Oh, Dr. Tiller says they're imperfect. But that doesn't mean they can change.
Oh, of course not.
Oh, see? I always win when I talk to Dr. Tiller. Yeah, imperfect models taken as doctrine and carried and taught to us, and we're likely to do the same thing. But things are going to change because science is changing, and science is opening up a world or a model that hasn't existed since 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 years. And actually, the model that science is opening up is probably not the same exactly, but it's a model similar to what you find in the Sanskrit language of at least 3,000 years ago. And if you will bear with me, I'd like to talk about that and tell you about that. Is that all right? Okay. Another thing I'm going to point out is that there's a difference between making theories about something or the facts, the phenomena we're interested in, and actually experiencing them. I am an experientialist. I mean, you can have an intellectual image of something, you can have an intellectual model of something, but unless you experience it, it's just purely intellectual. Would you agree?
Yes.
And one of the things that went around parapsychology is that it never went into experientialism because they had to follow, or they wanted to make parapsychology phenomena acceptable to science. So, you know, if somebody experiences something, you can't actually drag the experience into the laboratory, right? Because when you experience it, it happens like this. And I'm going to give you an example. One is on a vacation in the mountains. And one is walking up a path that is going up the mountainside, observing the great scenery, right? Have any of you ever done that? And one is walking around saying, wow, this is great, and this is so forth and so on, and suddenly the body stops. The body stops. One is continuing looking and doesn't realize that the body has stopped. And then it becomes aware the body has stopped, and the body takes 3 steps backwards, and the cliff falls away, right in front of this person, and suddenly the knees get all so forth and so on, and then this one walks over and looks down there where the body would be, mangled, right? That's an experience that doesn't involve consciousness. And then one says, I'd better go back to the lodge. When one goes back and drinks 6 martinis. Now you can't drag a thing like that into parapsychology laboratory, right? But this is what we're interested in, right? We're interested in this kind of thing. That can't even be called a premonition because it wasn't even conscious. What would you call it? Well, we know it's subconscious, but what would you call the experience? An anomaly. That's the best word we can get up for it? We don't even have a word for it. The parapsychology and psychic literature does not have a word for that kind of thing. It has a word if you get an impression that something's going to happen. That's called a premonition. But that's after the fact, right? You have to wait to see if the premonition is going to come actualize or not. So we have a word for that, but we don't have a word for the most famous phenomenon in human history, what actually must be the most famous enduring phenomenon in actual history. Something in our system saves our lives. Do you understand what I mean now? Experiential? Well, you're not. So what does parapsychology test when it drags something into the laboratory? Give me some examples. Are you dead-headed tonight or what? Come on, give me some examples. What do parapsychologists test? Is there any parapsychologist here? Telepathy. Psychokinesis. Precognition. Intervention. Intervention's getting quite near what I was talking about. Michael Persinger does what?
He puts a skidoo helmet on people and he shows like pictures.
Yes, sir. I have been in that helmet many times. The definition of parapsychology, as found in Parapsychology Sources of Information, published in 1973, says thusly: parapsychology is a modern and more restrictive term for psychical research, the field which uses the scientific method to investigate phenomena for which there appear to be no normal, that is, sensory, explanations. Basically, this refers to phenomena subsumed under the general term psi that refers to the building blocks of telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, psychokinesis. Did you know that's the working definition of parapsychology? Well, here it is. I printed it out large so I could read it. You know, I'm getting old. Do you know how old I am? How old do I look? What?
About 60.
Oh.
Old enough.
I've been around for 72 years, this lifetime. Thank you. I appreciate it. What's wrong with this definition that I just read you? Pardon? No experiential in it, right? But there's something else that's odd about it. Well, that's one thing, yes.
But when they say not normal sensory, there's over 18 or 24 sensories, and that's not even referred to in that. So the definition of sensory is too limiting in that context, isn't it?
Answer me, audience. Answer his question. Nobody can answer that?
No, we agree with it.
Pardon?
We agree with it. At least I think the silence means that we're in agreement with what you're saying.
With what I'm saying?
And what, yes.
Yes. But there's something really odd about it. And you'll never know what it is until I point it out. There's one thing in this definition that's so taken for granted that it doesn't even appear as a question. Right? I'll read it again. I'd like to know if you can spot it. Parapsychology is a modern, more restricted form of psychical research. The field which uses a scientific method to investigate phenomena for which there appears to be no normal sensory explanations. What is the scientific method? Repeatable what? You're not quite following me. We are questioning which scientific method. Gotcha. Nobody ever thinks to say, what is this scientific method they're using? Right? Damn right. What is this current wonderful scientific method based in?
Hypothesis, test, analysis, conclusion.
It's based in materialism, which is defined the theory that physical matter is the only reality, and that all being and processes and phenomena can be explained as the manifestations or results of matter. When did that come into being? I know, but I want to know if anybody else knows. 1845. The four guys who got it together and pushed it into chemistry and then into physics were under 24 years old. And they have ruled the materialistic age. Now, the reason I'm focusing on these things here is I'm going to tell you what's happened to the only reality. See, if it was just a theory that physical matter exists and that processes and so forth and everything can be blah, 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 blah and everything, but it's the only reality. This definition is taken from my trustworthy Webster's Intercollegiate Dictionary of 1974. This was still the official definition of materialism. Only reality, I'm arguing, you see. So when people say the scientific method, they're referring, by implication, to the matter is the only reality. So if there's something around that is not made by matter, is not matter or something like that, they cannot test it with the scientific method because it's not made of matter. Got it? I very seldom prepare notes, but the things I'm going to say are so earth-shaking that I thought I should. And I'm going to point out one thing that the material sciences cannot explain, account for, or even find the mental processes that go on in it is consciousness. If you can't explain consciousness, you can't explain anything we're interested in. You can explain mercantilism. You can explain atomic bombs. You can explain everything else. But there is no currently existing science of consciousness. Here's a book by this guy named Roger Penrose, who's a very famous physicist in England. It is entitled Shadows of the Mind. It is subtitled The Search for the Missing Science of Consciousness.